So back in Warcraft 3, Lordaeron was caught off guard and fell. Previously the most important human kingdom, the creator of the Alliance of Lordaeron. However, after the Alliance recovered between Warcraft 3 and WoW Classic, how is it that the Alliance never launched a retaking expedition? Now that the scourge spread was stopped, surely they could have just retaken and rebuilt Lordaeron? Well, the answer is a lot more complex than it might appear. So much has changed, many of the players were unable to do something like this, so let's take a look at this scenario and let's examine whether Lordaeron could have been reclaimed to ultimately return back to the Alliance. Anything Warcraft related, Warhammer, Destiny, pretty much any game you can imagine, you can get at the best market prices with my link in the description below on Gamivo. On top of that, I got mobile top-ups, software, a whole bunch of other things. Even better, if you use my code DORON, you will get another discount on top, so click my link in the description and check out Gamivo. The Alliance was originally built in Lordaeron, like how today the Alliance is focused on Stormwind. It was actually the other way around back in the day. In the original Orcish invasion, it was really Stormwind that took the brunt of the assault as it came from there, and the Alliance was established to essentially protect the entire continent. However, how is it really that the main kingdom of this alliance fell? There was never really an organized movement to bring it back to the alliance, seeing how important it is. Lordaeron together with the Rati kingdom is actually the most important kingdom for the humans. It is where they first arrived when they split from being the Titan servants. The Troll Wars, some of the most important battles happened in this area, in this entire part of the continent. Well, a crazy turn of events happened that really did make it impossible to do anything, and I'd say the biggest reason Lordaeron fell so quickly is that it caught everyone completely off guard, and no one was actually prepared to fight a threat like this on the continent. You can see in Warcraft 3 how it started as just like rumors, something is going on, and just like a bit later, Arthas was purging an entire city. I mean, if Lordaeron sent an army, by the time they would have arrived, like, the scourge already consumed the continent. Now, during the invasion, Lordaeron did get help, but the Alliance was not as strong as it was after the end of the Orcish Wars. First of all, Gilneas walled itself off, Stormwind was a lot weaker, and it was mainly just rebuilding from the wars, and they had a lot of internal issues. So really, Lordaeron was kind of the main center of power. There's also a reason they decided to invade Lordaeron and not like Gilneas. Dalaran did help significantly, and even a contingent of dwarves arrived later, but the allies were having problems like the gnomes dealing with Gnomrigan problem and a lot of other stuff. Now, the scourges had just spread like wildfire. They very quickly lost their kingdom, they fell into disarray. The scourge was expanding rapidly with the plague and constantly raising new undead. Very quickly, they managed to completely destroy the kingdom of Quotalas, which was also incredibly powerful. However, we did deal with a lot of this. Ultimately, Quotalas returned, that it was starting to be rebuilt. The scourge was mainly concentrated in Northrend, like half the undead in this region became the Forsaken. Initially, there was a mission to bring back Lordaeron. This was in Warcraft 3, it was led by Grand Marshal Otmar Gerritos, and he did manage to actually do quite a bit. He was decently successful, but ultimately, he wasn't the right person to lead. He was very short-sighted, he was played by the Forsaken, he shunned his allies, and ultimately, it all failed. The question though is, how is it that in this period between the end of Warcraft 3 and the defeat of Archimonde and Classic, that the Alliance never organized an expedition to bring back this major human kingdom? Well, the answer is very multifaceted. I'd say the main problem is that the Forsaken became way too powerful, way too quick, and it was also the Horde that protected. After breaking away from the Scourge and dealing with Gerritos, Sylvanas very quickly sought allies, as she knew she was just a sitting target for the Alliance expedition, and she ultimately joined the Horde together with later the Blood Elves, and then after that they became a significant regional power. At this point, it was already too late to do anything. The Alliance trying to bring back Lordaeron would essentially involve battling the entire Horde, and it would become like a global war. The other big problem was that a mission like this just didn't make too much sense. Technically, as we can see in recent, the Forsaken consider themselves Lordaeron. They're just undead citizens of Lordaeron, so if the Alliance retook it, what would they even do? I mean, the destruction of Lordaeron was terrible, while there were refugees. It's not like the entire population survived and they just like were displaced. You can see in a portion that escaped to what later became Terramore, but it's not like half the population escaped and they were just waiting to return. The Alliance would have to essentially bring in settlers if they managed to clear out the area, and this new Lordaeron wouldn't really be Lordaeron, it would be something entirely different. The point is that Lordaeron was just far too gone at this point. It's not like Gilneas that fell later down the line and then essentially like all the Gilneans found refuge with the Alliance and they returned like a decade later. The destruction of Lordaeron was far more severe. However, there were also further complications, like the Scarlet Crusade, which had this mission, like the exact same mission to retake Lordaeron, but it just went absolutely crazy. And also the Scourge presence, especially at this time while the Lich King was alive, was a really big problem. The true answer to this question was that the Alliance at this point in Classic just had nowhere the amount of power they needed to do something like this. They had just managed to rebuild after the terrible Orcish wars, then the Gnomes lost their capital and lived in Ironforge. The Night Elves did join the Alliance, but they definitely wouldn't send a giant expedition to retake the human kingdom of Lordaeron, so something like this fell to Stormwind really. I mean, they were really the only kingdom that would push this idea. So the time to retake was really right around when Gyarados fell and Sylvanas just established herself in the Forsaken, and really the Alliance just missed this window. But regardless of missing the window, they never had the might at the time to do something like this. I mean, keep in mind, there is a massive distance between Stormwind and Lordaeron. Now, something like this that people expected would happen did actually happen in BFA when the Alliance was much more powerful. After the burning of Teldrassil, King Anduin did just this. He invaded Lordaeron with a massive force to remove the Horde and reclaim the land, but you had seen how that ended. Realistically, I mean, the Alliance was actually quite successful here. I mean, they had essentially broken into the throne room, they cornered Sylvanas, but even if this wasn't the Jailer's doing and Sylvanas was being manipulated, still the reclamation of Lordaeron would have been much harder than just simply attacking the walls. As I said, the cities were destroyed, the Forsaken had already established themselves, and there wasn't much of Lordaeron to take. Furthermore, as the new Alliance is centered on Stormwind, their entire focus shifted. Lordaeron was something that they had considered, something nice to have, but it wasn't like the core territory of the Alliance. The primary interest of the Alliance was centered around the southern eastern kingdoms and Kalimdor, and with this new alliance that was established, it was becoming less and less human-centered. It's also very important to keep in mind that during this time, the Lich King was still active, which is a really big deal, and he was significantly expanding the Scourge, planning to do to rest of Azeroth what he did to Lordaeron. With this in mind, sending their entire army and then weakening it to fight the undead that also wanted to defeat the Lich King just didn't seem like a good idea. Like, the Argent Dawn came in here at this time to battle the Scourge to retake a large part of the Plaguelands, but they remained mainly neutral. I mean, their goal was healing the land as opposed to being loyal to the Alliance. This was also a huge part of the entire situation. However, there was always tension. I mean, remember the battle for Undercity when Varian was pissed off after Bradgate and he literally just attacked Undercity? The Alliance always really had the goal of retaking Lordaeron in the back of their mind, but there was never a clear opportunity that just wouldn't cause a crazy all-out war. By the time the Lich King was defeated is when Garrosh came, and you remember what happened here. He significantly reinforced the Forsaken, they had attacked Gilneas, and at this point the entire part of the continent was a fortress. It would all lead into BFA. So do not spin around in circles. Initially there was a chance, but the Alliance just wasn't ready, and ultimately when they did have the capability to retake Lordaeron, the entire area became much stronger and they just couldn't keep up with this power. Ultimately, with the change in leadership and the new Forsaken identity and the lines between the undead Lordaeron, the lines started blurring, and really at this point in time it just doesn't make sense anymore. Like, this mission is just a thing of the past. The Lordaeron of the past is gone, a new evolved Lordaeron exists, and I'm guessing that is going to be a huge focus of what we will see in Midnight as well. Thanks for watching. Check out this guide that destroyed Zelda's homeworld by clicking on the screen, and subscribe to my brand new Witcher lore channel by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.